Okay, thank you all for joining us and for being so patient during that. We really appreciate it. We're still learning the ropes here. So my name is Carrie Schaefer. I am the city coordinator with Taste of Science St. Petersburg. We have a lot of people here with us today. So I want to take just a second for everyone to go around and introduce themselves to you. So my co-host, Cassie, if you want to go first.
Hi, I'm Cassie Campbell. I am on the Taste of Science Tampa team, but we're teaming up with St. Pete for this wonderful event tonight. And I am a grad student at USF. I'm working on my PhD in wetland ecology. Mackenzie, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, I'm Mackenzie Kerr. I'm a lab manager and outreach coordinator at the University of South Florida College of Marine Science with Dr. Maya Breitbart, and I am on the St. Pete team. I will be doing your trivia this evening.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ben. I used to be the city coordinator for the St. Petersburg chapter. I now currently live in Savannah, Georgia, and I work for the NOAA Grays Reef National Marine Sanctuary. So glad you all could make it tonight.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica. I am the city coordinator of the Tampa team, and I will be moderating Facebook and Zoom comments, and I work in digital advertising at the Tampa Bay Times.
Hi, I'm Other Jessica. I am from the Tampa team, and I am a PhD student at USF. Interested in freshwater health and water security issues. And I helped coordinate with some of the speakers.
And then we have Tom, our first speaker, if you want to say hello.
Hi, my name is Tom Taylor Clark. I'm a professor of molecular pharmacology and physiology at the College of Medicine at the University of South Florida. And this is my first rodeo on Zoom, so I hope I don't screw it up.
And then me?
Yes, and then Sarah. Sorry.
I don't know if you can see me because of the sun. Hopefully it'll go down soon. But my name is Sara Dykins-Callahan. I am a teaching professor in the Department of Humanities and Cultural Studies at the University of South Florida. I'm not a scientist, but I do study some stuff that involves science. So
still study stuff that we really want to hear about tonight. So this whole group of people is everyone that made kind of tonight possible. And I kind of first wanted to start with just introducing Taste of Science if those who are watching are not familiar with it. So Taste of Science is a nationwide nonprofit that's part of the organization Scientists, Inc. And we really believe that science should be accessible to everyone. So our goal is to bring researchers into the community to discuss their science. And so tonight, of course, we're hosting this event with Doctors Tom Taylor Clark and Sara Dykins-Callahan, both of whom are scientists or researchers at the University of South Florida. And really our kind of bread and butter events are these in-person events that we like to host at breweries and coffee shops and restaurants in our different cities. And since the pandemic, we really haven't been able to do that. So we've moved entirely to online events, but we're really excited about having events in this space, even though it comes with some technical difficulties, because it allows us to try new things and reach new people. So to make this like a normal event, I'm drinking a beer from a local brewery. Mine is from Pinellas Ale Works, a place where we like to have a lot of our events. So I would love to hear from those of you who are watching, if you're drinking, a beer from a local brewery or maybe enjoying dinner takeout on this Tuesday night from a local restaurant, and we can give some shout outs to, the places that we like to support kind of in our neighborhoods. Something else that I wanted to highlight is that we will be posting a survey at the end of this event, and we would love your feedback. things that you loved, things that you think we could improve upon. We're always looking to improve. And in addition, I wanted to highlight that all of this work is done on an entirely volunteer basis. So everyone here who introduced themselves and a lot more people who are kind of behind the scenes have worked really hard to put this event together and move us into an entirely online platform. So we're really grateful for them. And finally, before we get to Tom, all of our online events and most of our events in person are free of charge because we want our science to be accessible to all people. However, that means that we are reliant upon donations. So if you think it's important, especially now, to increase science literacy across the United States, then we would really appreciate you taking the time to visit tasteofscience.org/donate. So with that, I'll pass it over to Cassie and we can get started.
Cool. All right. I have the pleasure of introducing our first speaker. This is Dr. Tom Taylor Clark from the University of South Florida. He is a professor and the Associate Chair of Research at the College of Medicine, Molecular Pharmacology, and Physiology. His research focuses on the role of the peripheral nervous system in regulating respiratory and cardiovascular systems. So he's investigating how pollutants, irritants, and inflammation can cause responses such as coughing, wheezing, and cardiac arrhythmia. However, today he is going to be talking to us about the science of extreme tastes.
Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate the invitation. I'm going to see if I can share my screen so I can show. No, apparently my screen sharing has been disabled. The host has disabled attendee screen sharing. Oh, I'm now co-host. Okay, good.
Can you do it now? There we go.
There we go. Can everyone see my terrible PowerPoint screen?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm just going to take 10 minutes, hopefully, to talk about kind of the basic science of taste. As was introduced, I don't study this, but it's close enough to my field of sensory biology that I can give it a fair go. So as most people kind of believe, the humans have 5 general senses: vision, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. This is not actually true. We have way more senses, but this is what we teach our children, so let's just go with that. We're going to focus first off on taste. Let's see if this works. And you guys will be familiar with the kind of general classic taste that we talk about. The taste of saltiness, sweet, sour, bitter, and a new taste really for in our lexicon is something called umami, which is a great word, but it basically means kind of a meaty sensation. And these are the classic tastes that have been studied for many years, since about the 1950s. But really, there are other tastes that we need to consider as well. The idea of physical sensation or mouthfeel inside the mouth, and also new tastes like pungent tastes, like chili, which is a hot, spicy taste, and wasabi, which is another kind of spicy taste, but it kind of tastes different. And then the stuff that you have in your toothpaste, like menthol, which is a real cool taste. So that's the kind of overview of what tastes are. And you'll see on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see a map of the tongue where it says where the tastes are on the tongue. This is derived from science done in the 1950s and 60s, and it's completely wrong. And it's being propagated today by pseudoscience constantly, is this idea that different parts of the tongue taste different things. And I urge everyone to test this out, to get a little grain of salt and then put it on different parts of your tongue, and it's salty everywhere. So this is nonsense. There is some degree of a preferential sensitivity on the tongue, but there's no sweet area and bitter area and so forth. And it makes no sense that there would be. So we're going to debunk this straight away. That's not how it works. So how does it work? Well, all across the tongue, you have these little kind of dips on your tongue called papillae. And these are kind of small kind of protrusions on the tongue, which increases the surface area in the tongue. And on these papillae are taste buds. I think most people are familiar with this concept of a taste bud. And these are kind of barrel-shaped structures that contain taste cells. And each taste bud, and you might have about 4,000 on your tongue, each taste bud has about 50 to 150 taste cells. So this is where the chemicals in your food interact with these taste cells and try and activate them based upon what the chemicals are in the food. And what we've realized is on the left-hand side is a big high magnification kind of cartoon of what a taste bud would look like. And you see there's a number of different types of taste cells. And we've really helpfully named them type 1, type 2, and type 3, so that even I can remember this. And what we find is that there are some of these types of cells are specifically linked to different types of taste sensation. So for example, type 2 cells are either sweet type 2 cells or umami type 2 cells or bitter type 2 cells. Whereas the type 3 cells are only involved in detecting sour. Strangely enough, scientists still haven't worked out what type of, which taste cell is important for salty taste sensing. People think it's type 1, but that's really because they don't think it's type 2 or type 3, but that's not really evidence that it is type 1. Okay, so these cells are little kind of, they're kind of like skin cells, but have been adapted to be these taste cells. When these sense the chemicals in the food that we eat or the drinks that we eat, they then signal to the nerves which innervate them. Now these nerves are special, called gustatory sensory nerves. And when the taste cell is activated, that then switches on the nerve cell, and then that nerve projects all the way into the brain, where it then signals various things inside the complex circuitry in the brain to say, oh, we just ate something that was salty. Now, neither these taste cells nor these gustatory sensory nerves are activated by pungent chemicals like chili, wasabi, and menthol. So how do we sense those? Well, it actually goes through a completely different system. So this is a very scary slide. I like it though, because it talks about the trigeminal nerve. And this was actually the first thing that I studied when I came to this country to study sensory biology, is to study the somatosensory system in the head. And what this is the trigeminal nerve projects all the nerves going to your face. So it goes to your mouth, it goes to your nose, your eye, and so forth. And it supplies a different type of sensory nerve to the tongue. In the middle here, we have a beautiful image of nerves which have a color in them. So this green color is the structure of the nerve going into the taste bud. And you see there's lots of green nerves going into the taste bud, but there's also this big green nerve outside the taste bud. And this is helpfully called a perigemal fiber. I don't know what that means, but it means that it's on the outside of the taste bud. And these are projected from the sensory nerves from the trigeminal. And importantly, these are free nerve endings. They don't innervate a taste cell. They're just in the skin, if you will, of the tongue. They're just there. And those are involved in the sensing of chili and wasabi and so forth. So you can actually compare these nerves in the face with the nerves that you have all throughout your body. And you know you've got nerves all throughout your skin, and they're there to detect many things, including those things which are bad for you. So we have, say, nerves in your skin where when you step on a nail or you hit yourself, that they activate and they say, Tom, don't do that, that's painful. And the reason why they do that is because they're activated by these noxious stimuli, because they have specific receptors in them. And these receptors are both in these facial nerves from the trigeminal and these body nerves from the dorsal root ganglion. So the important thing is some stimuli are damaging, other stimuli is nice. If you stroke yourself, that's generally a pleasant sensation. If you hit yourself, it's generally an unpleasant sensation. That's because we're stimulating different nerves. Okay, so what's this got to do with chili? What's this got to do with food? Well, we have to speak evolutionarily for a moment. And we have to work out and understand that some plants want to control who eats them. This makes a lot of sense for the chili plant, because the chili plant can be eaten by two largely different types of animals. They can be eaten by birds, or they can be eaten by mammals. Now, if a chili fruit is eaten by a bird, the seeds pass through the digestive tract and are activated by the digestive tract. So then when the bird then decides to defecate all over the soil, then it will release activated seeds and the plant can flourish. Whereas if a mammal eats the fruit, then the seeds are destroyed by the really powerful acids in the mammalian stomach. So the chili plant has adapted to making the birds like the chili, but making the mammals not like the chili. And the way it has done this is it's evolved to produce this chemical called capsaicin. Capsaicin is the pungent ingredient in chili peppers. And the reason why capsaicin causes, this chili causes heat and pain is because it activates the heat sensors that we naturally have that we need to protect ourselves. So if you touch a hot stove and it hurts, the reason why it hurts is because the heat has activated the nerves, because they express this very complicated protein on the surface of their nerves called TRPV1. Terrible name. It is what it is. It's called TRPV1. Now, if you step on fire, as Descartes drew back in the 1600s, you respond in an aversive way. And so that's what the heat does. It activates this TRPV1. Capsaicin, the pungent ingredient inside the chili, activates the same mammalian heat receptor. And so because the capsaicin goes onto the activates the receptor, you get nerve activation and you get pain. So the reason that the chili peppers contain capsaicin is to stop mammals from eating it, because when you eat it, it's hot, it's painful. Now, humans are pretty weird though, because we've decided that we like this. But there's a vast range of how strong you can have in heat terms with these capsaicin containing plants. So this is just a long list. I'm not going to go into it in detail, where you have a bell pepper, which I can eat because I don't deal with spiciness at all. And this has virtually no capsaicin in. So there's no heat. Whereas if you go up and up and up through jalapeno, up to Jamaican hot pepper, you can see we're getting a higher and higher amount of capsaicin. And how you rate how hot something is with something called the Scoville rating. So you go from 0 to 16 million for pure capsaicin, which is the pure ingredient which is in chili pepper, which is more than US grade pepper spray. I've never been pepper sprayed, but I assume it's really unpleasant. Now, we thought for a long time, scientists thought for a long time that capsaicin was the hottest thing on earth. We're actually wrong. There's another plant called Euphorbia resinifera, which is a kind of cactus-like thing found in Mexico and in Morocco as well, which has a Scoville rating of 16 billion. So this is 1 million times more powerful than pepper spray, which sounds really unpleasant. So don't go eating this stuff. That's the take-home message. So this is chili. What about everything else? Well, actually, these temperature sensors that our sensory nerves have, like TRPV1, which is activated by chili, we have a lot of them. Some which sense very hot things, some which sense mild temperatures, and some which sense cold. They have all been exploited by various different plants to modify what animals eat these particular plants. So for example, horseradish, which is like wasabi, activates another receptor called TRPA1, which I've spent a lot of my time studying. So we have horseradish activates TRPA1, we have mint activates a cold receptor TRPM8, and it is these receptors which sense these pungent ingredients like chili, camphor, cinnamon, horseradish, garlic, etc. So it's your trigeminal system, not your gustatory system, which senses these. So let's just end up with how we actually sense taste. We have the two types of nerves. We have the taste bud nerves themselves, and we have the trigeminal sensory nerves outside the taste buds. You have taste coming in. You also have the somatosensory, the pungency and the pain and the temperature and so forth. And these feed into our neocortex. And this is where we have the conscious flavor perception. But that's not the only thing we have, because we have smell coming in as well. And the olfactory system in humans has been understood to detect 1 trillion different odors, which is incredible. And they feed in together with our subconscious memory systems, our emotion, our motivation and craving in the amygdala, and also some autonomic information coming from the gut. So when you eat a lot of sugar, for example, that may change your sensation of what the sugar feels like in your brain. So that's kind of like the wrap up. I'm sure I took far too long. That's the general gist of how we presently understand how taste works. I appreciate your attention.
Thank you, Tom, so much. So perfect. We thought it might be fun for one of our volunteers, Ben, to try a few spicy things with us, and then maybe have you go through and describe what exactly is happening when he's eating these spicy things. I think he has a variety of things from not so spicy to spicy.
Sure.
So Ben, if you want to
tell
us what you have going.
Yeah, I don't know whose description of fun this was, but it was not mine.
Sorry.
Well, I guess the first thing I have, probably one of the most common but least hot things that I have up here is flaming hot Cheetos. I've been training on these for a couple of weeks now, and you know, I'm going to eat a few and wondered what might be, if you need me to read ingredients or anything, what the sensation might be with kind of a fake chili flavor.
So is it
I'm still trying to understand what the actual flavor of flaming hot Cheetos is, because I don't know what hot tastes like. I don't know if there's a distinct flavor of hot.
Well, obviously the heat will kind of mix in with the other flavors that you, the other kind of classic tastes. So how sweet it is, how salty it is, and so forth. I imagine that you've got quite a bit of salt in those.
For sure, absolutely. So yeah, that wasn't too hot, but so a couple of the other things that I have are a Matuke's Calypso sauce, which I got at Pam's Roti Shop in St. Petersburg, and this is a Scotch bonnet pepper, Scotch bonnet base. I also have a
that's really hot. Apparently, according to my table, that's really hot.
This one, Scotch bonnet.
Yeah, they say that's up there.
That's up there. Well, I don't know. I saw you had a lot of scientific names on your chart, but this is a scorpion pepper, and I was looking up to see, and this was a over 2 million Scoville sauce.
Yeah, that's pepper spray level. That's
you
that's
put
like
in your
amazing
mouth.
yourself. Yeah.
And then if anyone is familiar with the online show on YouTube, The Last Dab, Hot Ones, this is their top hot sauce there. It's called The Last Dab, and it's actually a hybrid pepper of scorpion pepper and a couple other ones, but it's called Pepper X, and it has it's been rated at over 3 million Scoville. So Tom, whichever one you think might be best, I'll hold them up again. And,
well, I mean, let's just go for the worst one. I mean, sure, that's what we want to do.
I'm so glad you said that. I was waiting so eagerly for you to say that.
Well, be careful though, please. How many drops are you going to put on?
So I've got a quesadilla here. It's just cheese and well, tortilla, and I'm just going to put a couple of drops on.
Yeah, that's enough.
So there's a pretty good sized line right there, and
Do you have water with you? Do you
Yes, I do. I have milk here.
Okay.
I have water and I have beer. I don't think the beer will do too much, but
it will help.
My last words will be ooh la la, ah wee wee. So I've had this sauce before and actually really like the taste of it. There's a lot of good spice in it, but now the heat's starting to come on. I can feel it flush into my face, and it's kind of starting in my tongue and working its way down into the throat. I don't know if I was going to say, I don't know if I put enough on, but I think I did. It just takes time.
Wow. Okay. So to describe what you're feeling, the flush is because when you activate these trigeminal nerves, they release these neuropeptides, which then dilate your blood vessels. And that's why you're swelling. Just like when you kind of slap yourself and it goes red where you get slapped, exactly the same thing is happening. So the nerves are activated and they're saying something's gone wrong. We shouldn't have this much pain. So they're releasing this stuff which vasodilates.
So I'm starting to feel it now in my ears. Like it feels like my ears are getting pressured.
That's good. So you're getting that because as it's gone down your throat and down your esophagus, you have another sensory system called the vagal system, which is getting activated. And they have the same type of nerves. And that you might be coughing as well if this happens. That's going to be the vagal system. And the vagal system is also attached to the ears. So it's just building up. All the information is coming in saying, what did you do, Ben? That was done.
Yeah, so now I'm feeling my mouth get pretty watery. Like I feel like I just need to spit out and
yeah, so this another reflex response, and this is the signal going into the brain and then coming out, is it's increasing the secretions in your mouth as a way to protect you from whatever foolish stuff that you swallowed.
Pretty foolish, I would say, yeah. So is that part of also like my nose starting to drip now as well?
Exactly the same thing. Yeah. So some of these reflexes are peripheral, the vasodilation, the blood vessels, whereas the secretion, the signal's gone in and then come back out down through another set of nerves called the parasympathetic nerves. Yeah. Is your heart racing?
No, I wouldn't say. Should I take another bite?
No, please don't.
No, it's not racing too much. I just feel like my head is hot, starting to sweat a little. Definitely a lot more saliva in my mouth. Ears are getting a little clogged and hard to hear. And I might actually break into my milk to ease some of the pain.
You should do that. So the reason why the milk kind of helps us is because the idea is this capsaicin stuff, it's really fat soluble. And so when it gets, instead of drinking water, that's not going to get the residual capsaicin off your tongue. You need something which has got some lipids in, some fat, so it can wash down with the liquid. So that's the argument for using milk.
Okay, yeah. So with that, after that first and second sip, I can definitely feel the burn is out of my tongue. I'm still kind of feeling it in my throat, and maybe my mouth is still watering, but that burn is gone from my tongue. It's not there anymore.
Now do one more thing for me. Now eat the Doritos again.
All right, definitely tastes hotter. Tastes hotter than it did before.
Yeah. Because you've reintroduced some more of this capsaicin stuff and your tongue is kind of sensitized now. It's like, oh, this is just going from worse to worse. So, but I reckon if you had your super hot one, maybe 10 or 15 times a day for the next 2 weeks, then you wouldn't sense it as much, because we do know from certainly from cultures who have a lot of spice in their food that they don't sense it as much as people who don't have spice in their food. And that's this is a well kind of characterized biological thing, which is called desensitization. So gradually the nerves just don't sense it as much because they've kind of got tired of the activation. So that's the actual reason why people use this capsaicin as a pain reliever on arthritic joints. They rub it in, it hurts, but then 3 or 4 days after rubbing it in, you get rid of the pain. So please keep on eating this stuff every day, routinely.
Be more
for my amusement, yes.
I saw a question by HH from the chat, and it said, "Ask, doesn't alcohol also break down spicy things? As the way fats or milk would?"
I don't know if that's true. Certainly, people drink a lot when they go to spicy restaurants. That's true. Certainly in England, going to the Indian and having lots of lager is a typical Friday night. I think it's more that you don't really feel your sensations as acutely if you have some degree of intoxication. I don't think sure, alcohol will dissolve the capsaicin. And indeed, that's what we dissolve capsaicin in our lab, is we have it in 100% ethanol. So maybe it will get rid of it off the tongue. But I think there's a mix of both intoxication and the kind of solubility aspect to it.
I see. Well, Tom, thank you. That was a cool experience, and then also to hear what was actually going on in my brain and on my tongue along with it all.
Yeah. Well, I'm so pleased you're doing it, and not me.
And I'm still alive.
Yeah, for now.
So Tom, we want to give you just a few questions from our audience before we switch over to our kind of halfway activity. So I wanted to ask you about genetic predisposition. So it sounded like you said someone can get used to this level of spice over time, but is there any evidence that we can be genetically predisposed to kind of be able to handle more spice, or is there
I would automatically say yes for 2 reasons. One, we know that we have genetic variation through every single protein in the body throughout the human population. So we know that there are what we call polymorphisms, which is where you have, different areas of the protein have slight variations within the human population. And secondly, just from our own personal experience, we know some people can't deal with any spiciness whatsoever, and some people seem to be okay with it. Even at first blush, when you take a child who's 6 or 7, never had spicy food before, and some of them like it and some of them don't like it. So I'm not aware of any specific mutations that cause this, but I would not be surprised if there were genetic predispositions. I think it's unlikely, though, that those genetic predispositions are located in one racial group more than another. So it's not like Indians are far more capable of dealing with spice than Caucasians or anything like that. No, it will be throughout I'm sure it'll be kind of pretty evenly spread throughout the whole species.
Thank you.
So we have a couple of people in the chat saying that they have respiratory responses to spicy foods. So there's like coughing and hiccuping and things like that. So what's going on there?
So as Ben said, when he was eating the food, he was feeling the sensation not just in his tongue, but further down his throat. And of course, the food pipe and the windpipe, the trachea, are very close to one another. And just like in the mouth and in the esophagus, we also have exactly the same type of nerves. in the airways going down into the lungs. And those are the nerves that I actually study. And so they express the same TRPV1. So if you do something stupid like inhale capsaicin, let's say you wanted to do the cinnamon challenge, but you did it with chili powder, you would evoke a massive cough response. And in fact, this is actually a thing that we do, that my field does to test how responsive people are to their cough problems with inhaling capsaicin. So you can have a response because you've got a bit of capsaicin going into your lungs, but also you have a response where you have multiple organs are really fed by the same kind of nerves. And the brain is not really that interested in pinpoint, oh, you have some chili in this part of your esophagus versus this part of your lungs. It's not like the skin where you really can tell the difference between one part of the skin and another with touch. With the internal organs, it's more a general, the body goes, something's wrong, let's come up with all the reflexes that we can possibly come up with to help us. So we're going to have increase in secretions, we're going to cough, we're going to have pain, we're going to sweat, we're going to do all these things to basically cover all our options to try and get rid of whatever stupid stuff you decided to ingest. So the hiccuping is similar to the cough, but hiccup is slightly more complicated because it's not a reflex, it's where the brain thinks something should be happening and something else is actually happening, and the brain kind of stutter steps. So it says breathe, breathe, instead of breathe, breathe, breathe. So a hiccup is like a stutter step for our lungs, if that makes any sense.
All right, so I think we're going to do one more question and then we'll have to move on for the sake of time. And I thought this was really interesting. Someone asked, can you please say a bit more about how basic tastes combine with each other and other factors to create flavor?
Sure. This is incredibly complex. So not only do we have the taste cells in the taste bud kind of sitting right next to each other, and when they get activated, they actually talk to their partners around them. So if you have just a pure salty taste, in some way, maybe your sour sensors will also get activated a little bit. Your bitter receptors will get activated a little bit. So there'll be complex happening in the taste buds, but even more complex is in the brain. But I will say one thing, that when we look at the nerves which are activated in the brain to various types of tastes, there's a huge overlap between the classic tastes of bitter and saltiness and sweet and so forth, but there's virtually no overlap between sour and sweet. And this is kind of instinctively obvious to us that really they are the two sides of the same coin. Sour and sweet are opposites, whereas what's the opposite of salty? There isn't an opposite of salty. There's not salty, but that's not really an opposite. Whereas for us, our kind of concept of sweet and sour being so opposite is actually kind of mapped inside our brains. Why that is, I don't know. But how all these tastes come together is basically, we don't know. We know where these areas in the brain are, but we really don't know how these circuits work together. And that's really the next generation of all neuroscience, is not to find out where things happen, but really how these decisions in the circuits are actually decided by the circuits themselves. You don't know that you like something until you do. But how does the brain tell you, well, actually, we kind of like that. Even though it's a bit weird, we kind of liked it. We don't know how the brain works in that way. It's too complex right now for us to understand. Thanks a lot for all the questions. I really appreciate the enthusiasm, and keep listening. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Tom. We really appreciate it. All right, so we're going to move on to some trivia before we get into our next speaker, Sara. So Mackenzie, do you want to take it away for us?
Yeah, so thank you so much, Tom. This works perfectly with our trivia. So hopefully if you all were paying attention during the presentation, and then you should be able to get most of these pretty easily. Some of them will be a little more difficult. We're going to be using a website called Kahoot. It's really easy to use. And let me just give you the directions first, and then I'll pop up my screen where you can join in. If you want to play, it's best to use a secondary device, so like on your phone or an iPad, whatever you have near you. Or if you have your computer, you can make it dual screen, so it's a little bit easier, because the questions will be on where we're showing right now, and then your phone or other device will have where you actually press which answer you want to show. And so throughout the game, each question will be shown up for a couple seconds, and then it will give you the answers with shapes and colors. And you'll use your device to click which one is the correct answer. And if you click it quicker, then you get more points. Also, if you get it correct, you get points. And so make sure you click it as quickly as possible to get the highest amount of points. The player who has the most points at the end will get 3 Taste of Science Tampa Bay stickers, and we will mail them directly to you. So make sure when you do your login information, you use your first name or your initials so that we can definitely figure out who was the winner. And so now I'm going to pull up the website where you can log in and type in the game pin. So just give me a couple seconds to get that ready to go. So here is Kahoot. So all you have to do is type in www.kahoot.it, and then the game pin is shown here as well. And I can put it in the chat so that people can easily click through it. Awesome, we already got one on. And I'll give everyone a couple seconds here. Actually, can someone else post the pin, since I can't really change my screen right now? Again, this is going to be way easier to do from multiple devices. Awesome, we have a lot of people joining in. I'll put on some background music. Goes with my background. We have a couple more seconds here. I know people will take some time to get your other device up. And it's okay if you don't want to play, because you can just watch the questions and see who is on the leaderboard. All right, I'm gonna give 30 more seconds for those last few people. Five, four, three, two, one. All right, I will go ahead and get started. Got 44 players. What do you use to taste? You have 30 seconds. Gotta get everyone warmed up with an easy one. Okay, pretty good, everyone. Looks like Marissa S. is in the lead. We'll see if that stays the same way. What lobe controls taste? No Googling. All right. Most people got it. Not everyone. I mean, the majority. Uh-oh. We got Ben in the lead. Where are your taste buds located? Well, it looks like some people ran out of time. Try to get it quicker this time. All right, Jab is in the lead. I'm assuming that's someone's initials. Dan Pants in second. I like the name. What is the condition in which someone cannot taste? Now this one's pretty difficult. Gonna have to guess on this one. Wow. How do you guys know that? I did not. Okay, Jab is still in the lead. Dan Pants still in second. What percent does smell contribute to taste? Oh man, that was a hard one. 80%. Okay, our leaders are sticking to it. How many taste buds do you have? All right, some people thought millions, that's all right. Now you know, it's thousands. Let's see if this changes. It changed the bottom, people, but the top still in the lead. What is the average tongue length? How many of you just stuck out your tongue? 3 inches. That's measured actually from this part of your mouth and then how far you could stick your tongue out actually. So kind of interesting. All right. Up 11 places. Spicy Ben is the highest climber. Which sex has the longer tongue on average? Whoa. That's some quick clicking. It was almost a 50-50 split. That would have been funny. So it is men that have the longer tongue. Uh-oh, Beth P's climbing. How many taste sensations are there? Wow. Good job, people. 6.
I learned something from Tom. Clearly.
Yeah. Good job, everyone. Oh no! Here we go, Beth P. Coming up. And I America right behind. Let's see. Last question. Who's going to be the winner? Which of the following is not a taste sensation? Good job, people. All right, here we go. The moment we've been waiting for. Spicy Ben in third. Rich M in second. Beth P. Good job, Beth P. So please, if you could, just quickly answer this feedback form we're going to send out. And this will tell us if you liked the trivia. It's a couple clicks. And so Beth P, could you please reach out to me either on the chat or on our social media, and we'll make sure we mail you those stickers. So I will post that information in the chat as well as soon as I'm done sharing my screen. Congrats to everyone else. Thank you so much for participating. It was super fun for me to watch everything. And we actually played this beforehand as well, just to see how it worked. So definitely a good time. Kahoot's a fun website to try out. So thank you guys.
It's amazing to me that I've played that before and I still didn't do better on this trivia. So I don't know what that says about me. Okay, so moving on to our next speaker, I want to introduce Sara Dykins-Callahan. And Sara works at the University of South Florida, where she is a professor in the Department of Humanities and Cultural Studies. From 2015 to 2019, she served as the director of the Food Studies program at USF. In addition to cultivating a fun and functional garden at her home, she teaches courses titled Introduction to Food Studies and the Ethics of Food Production, which introduces students to food as meaning-filled cultural and social products. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Sara.
Hi, thank you guys so much for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here among you scientists. So it's pretty cool. I do cultural studies, so science does come in here and there, but I am not fluent in the disciplines of science. But I can help you better understand how certain kinds of scientific data and trends are interpreted culturally. And so that's one of the things I wanted to talk about today. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you, and we will move through my little presentation. Let's see. Is this working? Working?
It's still loading,
okay,
but I think it's getting there.
All right. So I've titled my presentation Safer at Home in My Garden for multiple reasons, one of which is that I have been at home since I returned from Japan on February 28th, quarantined. It's a long time. And so my garden has been my sanity. All right, so is it up yet? Maybe no.
Yep, we can see it now.
Okay, great. All righty. So for many of us, myself included, COVID has created a moment of relative pause in our typically fast-paced lives. Non-essential workers have been directed to stay at home. Parents are now homeschooling their kids. Retailers that cannot demonstrate their essential purpose have shuttered, including my hair salon. This moment, though, offers unprecedented potential to examine our consumption patterns, including and maybe especially our food consumption. Speculation that COVID-19 originated in a wet market in China has placed food and our food systems at the center of pandemic concerns. Our food systems are broken, and not in the way that Tyson means. For the last century, we have experienced an increasing disconnection between the foods we eat and their production. This disconnection was initially liberating for many of us, as we no longer had to hunt, gather, or grow our own foods. Pre-made packaged foods meant we no longer had to labor for hours in the kitchen to feed our families. No doubt, the industrialization of our food system has benefits for most of us. As consumers, we can now expect convenience, low prices, and access to whatever tastes good. And as we have embraced this gastronomic revolution, we have lost sight of what we're eating. Our disconnection has permitted the food industry to standardize practices that are both unsustainable for the future of human health and destructive to our planet. Our disconnection from the sources of our food has resulted in the absence of citizen oversight of arguably the most important facet of our national and individual security, our food systems. We have permitted industry to govern and regulate itself, which of course results in a certain cost-benefit approach to production, an approach that prioritizes speed and profit. For example, in September 2019, the USDA approved the new swine slaughter inspection system, which revokes the maximum line speed of 1,106 hogs killed and disassembled per hour. And it also transfers inspection responsibilities to plant workers. Pig processing facilities have historically been sites of the highest worker injury rates in the nation.
Hi, Sarah. Can I pause you for just a second?
Sure, of course.
It looks like your PowerPoint might not be moving along with us.
Oh no. All right.
Oh, there it goes.
Is it moving now?
Yeah, we're good to go.
Okay, great. Okay.
It's having a bit of an issue.
I think my screen froze. I apologize for
no worries.
Issues. Okay. So let's see. Talking about our broken food systems. So we have permitted industry to govern and regulate itself, which I just mentioned, using cost-benefit approach. They're going to, of course, prioritize speed and profit. So I was telling you about in September 2019, the USDA approved the new swine slaughter inspection system, and that effectively removes the limits that were there to protect workers, right? So you no longer have to kill only 1,106 and disassemble 1,106 pigs per hour. You can do more if you physically are able to do so. So according to the CDC and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, the agricultural industry continues to be one of the most dangerous job sectors in the US. OSHA reports the meatpacking industry as the most dangerous, documenting injury rates at 3, and in the case of the swine facilities, the pig processing plants, 7 times higher than the average American worker. These wet spaces, which are sites characterized by the bodily fluids of animals, are also breeding grounds for viral and bacterial organisms. US News and World Reports just a couple days ago implicates the unsanitary, crowded conditions of these facilities and the rapid spread of COVID-19 among workers. Of the many ills caused by industrial practices like monoculture and factory farming of animals, pandemics like COVID-19 may prove to be the most dangerous. In November 2019, the CDC published a report stating, quote, 6 out of every 10 infectious diseases in people are zoonotic, meaning the illness can spread from animals to people. The top 8 zoonotic illnesses of quote unquote most concern in the USA today include zoonotic influenza, West Nile virus, and emerging coronaviruses such as COVID-19. Zoonoses are spread through direct contact with animals, contact with the saliva, blood, urine, mucus, feces, and other bodily fluids of an infected animal, as happens in meat rendering facilities and intensive egg farms. Zoonoses can also spread through water that has been contaminated with feces from an infected animal. Concentrated animal feeding operations are responsible for 133 million tons of manure per year, much of which is housed in manure lagoons that produce runoff and leach into vulnerable soil. I'm going to pause just for a second there because the hacking and coughing you hear in the background is my Chihuahua. She has congestive heart failure. So no one here has COVID. It's just my dog who is old and has congestive heart failure. So, okay. Let's see.
I think that are the slides supposed to be advancing, or is it still okay?
Let's see, where are we? Yeah, they were supposed to be advancing.
Okay, just wanted to check. We're having some comments. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, thank you. All right, I will pay closer attention to that. Okay, so I was talking about zoonoses and how they are spread. So concentrated animal feeding operations are responsible, I think I told you, for 133 million tons of manure per year, which is worth repeating. That's a lot of manure, which produce runoff and leach into vulnerable soils. Water contamination is often responsible for outbreaks of vegetable-borne illnesses. So you think, well, I don't eat meat, I'm going to not have issues with this. Not so. Vegetable-borne illnesses like E. coli and Salmonella actually happen at quite a high rate. A recent article published by the American Society of Microbiology indicates factory farms and their water pollution as a quote unquote significant risk factor for the contamination of spinach, specifically with E. coli. And the CDC reports each year 1 in 6 Americans get sick from eating contaminated food. So this is a significant issue. The intensification of industrial agriculture, especially animal farming, has created ideal conditions for the spread of zoonoses. Unsanitary, overcrowded habitats, contaminated water sources, compromised immune systems of both the animals and the human laborers that work in these locations, as well as increasing resistance to antibiotics, depletion of the soil, the list goes on. Whether or not this COVID-19 pandemic originated in a Chinese wet market is in many ways inconsequential. What matters is that we are now paying closer attention to food systems and questioning the safety of food production practices. The fact that industrial practices governing our global food systems currently increase the likelihood of a zoonotic pandemic should move us all to question, to whom are we entrusting our safety? Even as COVID-19 spreads through meat facilities, just a couple days ago, the president signed an executive order to keep animal processing plants open, purportedly to stave off food shortages, but actually maintaining Tyson's and other meat industry supply chains. We cannot expect corporations to prioritize our safety and employee health over profit, but we can and we should expect our elected officials to place citizen safety first. Ultimately, we are responsible for the foods that we choose to eat. We are responsible for paying attention to the processes and practices that provide food for our tables. And we are responsible as citizens of this nation to hold accountable our public representatives and the corporations that currently control production of and access to food. To fix our broken food systems, we need to reconnect intellectually, emotionally, and physically with the things we choose to eat. I've been using this time reallocated by Safer at Home to assess my own eating practices and cultivate my home garden. With the exception of Takeout Tuesday, which I did skip this evening because of this, my husband and I are preparing and eating all of our meals at home. And at first, this was overwhelming. I hadn't realized how dependent I had become on restaurants. Like many others, I feel I don't have time to cook from scratch, eating out several times a week and supplementing with prepackaged, highly processed foods when I do eat at home. I thought we were practicing healthy and sustainable eating habits, but sheltering in place has cast into stark relief the problematic actuality of our relationships to food. So self-isolation has compelled our self-assessment, and it offers a moment to reset our approaches to food. I'd like to share just my simple two-step process as one of many potential models for reconnecting with the things we choose to eat. So very simple. First, prioritize. What I do and what I have my students do when I teach these courses is define what concerns motivate our decision to evaluate our relationships to the things that we eat. Is it health, environmental sustainability, animal advocacy, economic stability? Likely you're motivated by a number of concerns, but it is productive to identify the one that you feel most passionately about and place it at the top of your list. Because by narrowing your focus, you will feel less overwhelmed by the inevitable multitude of issues that attend any examination of our food systems. And step two, which is my favorite step, is grow something edible. Inside or outside, in a pot, makeshift container, or the ground. The active cultivation of growing a thing that you can eat helps us think and feel differently about the foods that we purchase at the store. Cultivating the thing we intend to eat helps us reconnect to practices of food production and subsequently repositions us within our food system. The move from consumer to producer is a powerful act that enables other kinds of powerful acts. The production of knowledge, the production of alternatives, and ultimately, and hopefully, the production of change. So that is my presentation for you. And if you're interested, while I don't have any fun demos to do, I do have practical tips for growing food at home if you are interested in this safer at home time and actually trying to grow something. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, we would love to hear about that. So if you want to kind of walk us through some of your tips right now, I know I would definitely love to hear about it.
Okay, well, I just took these pictures last night. So all of the pictures that you've been seeing in the presentation are from my home garden that I have been working on for quite a while. So the first thing I would say is to start small and manage your expectations. Because, and when I say small, I mean small, like a maximum of a 4x4, space, a 16 square foot space. It's a nice size to start with, because likely you're going to run into problems, you're going to fail, you're going to end up neglecting it for a little bit. And it's better for your sanity and for your morale to have something that's small and more manageable to start with. Next, location. So for us, when we moved into our house, I had intended to garden in our backyard, and I could not do so because it didn't have enough sunlight. And so instead, I chose our side yard, which is high profile, and our front yard, which is of course also high profile. That caused some ripples in the community. However, ultimately, people were extremely excited about it and very supportive. And so I think you'll find that your communities will be the same. Find the place in your space, whether it's in an apartment or in a house, wherever you are, that gets the most sun. Sun is imperative. Use materials that you have around. So for instance, you see here cinder blocks. I'm trying to kill out some grass around the beds, so I'm using cardboard that we reclaimed from the USF recycling area. There's some giant black plastic things there that I don't even know what they are, but they work to hold down my cardboard. So use what you have around, use what you can find, repurpose materials. Don't think that you need to actually go out and buy stuff to be able to do this. Do keep in mind though that many materials like pressure treated wood and many plastics do have toxins that they will leach into the soil over time. However, again, if you're starting small and if this is a temporary experiment, then I wouldn't be overly concerned about it. Fill the raised bed with dirt. So first of all, make a raised bed, even if it's only a couple inches off the ground. Raised beds help because you have the ability to manage the soil, to control the soil, and soil is everything. You do not need to go out and buy bags of soil. However, if you do that, don't buy topsoil, buy composted soil or garden soils. Otherwise, go dig under an oak tree. Don't damage the roots, but go dig under an oak tree. There's fantastic soil under there. I don't know the science of it, but I know it has to do with the oak leaves and breaking down. And it turns into fantastic soil for your plants. Even use the sandy soil. Like my yard is all sand. And so over time, I've added compost that we do ourselves at home to that soil and amended it. And it takes time, but it works well. Let's see. And then just plant something. So I would suggest not starting from seed. It's fun to see those little seeds pop up, but if you really want to see success in this first experiment, get some seedlings from your local grower. So Lowe's or Home Depot, of course, have stuff, but so do some of the smaller shops around town. And I'm sure wherever you are in your area of the country, there are little farm stores or nurseries that you can go to. Get a seedling, start from a seedling. You'll have far better success, and make sure that you choose something that you're going to eat. I started out growing things that I had no interest in eating. And so while it was successful and the plants were beautiful, I ended up giving away a lot of food because I didn't like the things I was growing in terms of taste. So grow something that you'll actually eat. Mulch. A lot of people don't think about mulch, but mulch can be oak leaves. It can be pine needles. I go to my local golf course and collect pine needles that have dropped from around the pine trees in order to mulch my garden. Mulch helps you prevent weeds, and it also helps keep the plants healthier so that you're not tempted to use non-organic insecticides and pesticides. Water daily, and that's where starting small is good, because if you start small, it won't feel like such a chore every day to water that space. And then you have to go out there and you gotta, touch the plants, talk to the plants, all that nutsy crunchy stuff, because basically that's your attention, right? So that the love that you show, the caring that you show, that's just attention. That's you out there seeing what's happening on a daily basis with that growth. And that allows you to be able to intercede if there are issues that develop quickly. So that's it. That's what I have.
Great. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to stop sharing your screen, then Cassie and I can get into some questions for you from our audience.
All right, here. Stop sharing. Got it.
Okay, so let's see what our audience has. Someone asked, what are the best fruits and veggies to grow in Florida? So what are you growing in your garden right now?
Sure. Currently, I have, starting with fruits, lemon trees, of course. Meyer lemon are my favorite. They're fast and easy, and they're relatively easy to maintain in terms of pests and diseases, a lot easier than orange trees are. I also have blueberry bushes, blackberry bushes. I've planted hazelnut trees and elderberry bushes, but they are still babies, so I don't know for sure how well they're going to do. They have leaves. I also have a plum tree. A methley plum tree is good for Florida, and muscadine grapes for fruits. And then for vegetables, I mean, runs the gamut. We have an amazingly long season here in Florida that really starts in August, late August, early September, and runs right through early to mid-June, where you can grow pretty much anything that you want. However, if you're going to grow on those shoulders, do be sure you're aware. So like if you're going to grow on the shoulder season of summer into fall, then you're going to want to plant stuff that likes the cooler weather. So kale, for instance, whereas now you wouldn't want to plant kale. It's not going to do well. The sun's just going to kill it. So what I planted now, what I planted a couple weeks ago, actually, sweet potatoes do well. I have Yukon Gold potatoes in, onions, lots and lots of different onions, strawberries, zucchini. I have zucchinis. Yeah. So Florida's great insofar as you can pretty much plant anything you want. You're just going to have to, if you want to do it organically, which I'd say is preferable, then you're just going to have to be out there and be aware and pay attention and learn about the things that you're growing and the things that you're going to eat.
We have a question from California. Somebody is looking for something particularly hardy, so something that won't die or something that won't get eaten by something else.
Yeah.
So what is
Not tomatoes. Those are ridiculously challenging. So in California, again, you have excellent climate out there for growing. I would say what I had my sister-in-law, who said she had a brown thumb because she kills everything. What I had her start with my nephews, her kids, was I did have them do a tomato plant, but it was one of the little potted porch tomato plants, cherry tomato plants. Those are typically pretty hardy. And if you buy them when they're already established, then you're pretty good to go. Lettuce is relatively easy. Kale is extremely easy, especially if you're growing it in the right temperatures. Scallions, onions are very easy and extremely difficult to kill. That's where I'd start.
Okay, and we have someone from New York City who was maybe interested in starting a window box garden, but they were worried about air quality and if that could impact kind of the healthiness of what they were eating or make it not good to eat. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
My knowledge of that is limited. I'm not 100% sure of the impact that air pollution can have on plants. I know that in terms of growth, what's the most important is the sun and the soil, and then making sure that you have enough water. So a lot of purists will say that my garden, it shouldn't even be alive because I use the water from the city, the chlorinated tap water from the city to water it. But that's what I have, and it seems to work just fine. So I would say I wouldn't be overly concerned about eating the things that you produce because of the air quality, but I would just experiment and see, okay, starting with maybe some herbs, starting with some lettuces or some carrots. Although if you do carrots, make sure it's a deep window box. Find the sunniest spot and make sure you water it and make sure that the soil is the best that you can get your hands on. And I'd see how it does. Maybe any of you scientists know anything about air pollution and its effect on plants?
Whew.
No?
Marine science.
So that's my best guess. And I would say just try, see what happens.
Mm-hmm. So I had a question actually kind of about the larger scale of food production and what you see as kind of the solution to the current situation we're in. So after the pandemic, if we were given the opportunity to kind of restructure how we do food production, kind of what you see as potential solutions or ways to improve what we're doing now.
Well, I think, and this is one of the things that comes up in the classes when I teach them over and over again is how can we fix it, right? We see how bad it is all of a sudden, how can we fix it? And you can't, you can't instantly fix it. And so you have to take a step back and recognize that you're an individual and that you make choices. And one of those choices is awareness. And so really that's what my presentation was kind of all about is this is the moment, right? Safer at home, the pandemic. This is the moment where we can cultivate awareness, where we can choose to educate ourselves, to become aware, and to start thinking about how we might make choices differently. And I think that that's a perfectly legitimate place to start. I think attempting to revise the entire sociocultural structure of food and food systems nationally or globally, I mean, it's too big. And that's why people get scared or get tired of it and turn away from it. And so I don't see the use in asking that giant question, no offense,
No, that's fine.
but instead saying, okay, what am I interested in? What am I passionate about? What are my concerns? And what can I do, right? What are the actions that I can take? And one of those actions is to reconnect with the food that you eat. Ask, where does it come from? And I guarantee you, when you start to try to track where it comes from, that is an eye-opening experience. So.
All right. Well, I think for the sake of time, we should probably wrap up, but thank you so much, Sarah. This was really great.
Thanks for letting me join your science people.
Yeah, it was awesome. So I'm going to let Cassie wrap it up for us.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, so we want to say thank you to everyone that attended, and a big thank you to our guest speakers, Tom and Sarah, for taking the time to teach us about the science of taste and food. We hope everybody enjoyed this event. Taste of Science is going to continue to bring you some online content from all the different cities. You guys can tune in, as you guys know, from anywhere, which is great. We do want to just point out that because of COVID-19 and the outbreak, we've lost our biggest source of income, which are those in-person, face-to-face events. So if you guys really think that this is important, if you want to keep funding us into the next year, it would be really, really great if you could head over to tasteofscience.org and hit that donate button. Or you could visit our Redbubble site and you can buy some Taste of Science gear. We get a percentage of that, which would be awesome. We're going to post this on our YouTube channel, and we're going to add some links so you can continue to follow all of our guest speakers and their good work. Cool. So thanks, everybody, and have a good night.